Greetings, magnificent souls, to the Lily Bewley podcast, where we have open and honest discussions about ourselves. This is your host, Lily Bewley, and I'm honored to have conversations here with thought leaders, visionaries, healers, and even solo conversations with myself about things I am currently reflecting on. This is a place where we break down, break away, and break through our emotional trauma, allowing ourselves to attract health, build wealth, and live a peaceful life. We are tired of being sick and tired. We are tired, but we are not giving up. We know that there is something magnificent inside of us. And because we are fighting daily, hourly, and by the minute, fighting ourselves, our kids, our spouses, we have to do things differently. We have to break this cycle. We don't have a million chances. We have to be happy now. We have to find a way. So how do we do that? How is that possible? If you look around at what society is telling you, they tell you that what we're doing is impossible. Yet it's happening every single day. And it's happening through the practice and the love that we call awakening the magnificent soul. We are all magnificent souls, and these are our stories of healing. Today in episode 79, I welcome Hayden Dawes to chat about radical permission, self-compassion, and collective liberation. Such a great episode today, and don't forget to let me know your thoughts about this episode or anything you'd like me to cover on future podcasts at epiphanyvault.com. Remember, it is a safe place, and I would welcome the discussion. Also, a request, if you are enjoying the show, please rate and share to your friends, colleagues, anyone that you think may enjoy this, so we can get the word out. We can start the awakening revolution to more and more souls who want to heal. And now on to my show today. My guest, Hayden Dawes, is a compassion warrior, therapist, researcher, and speaker. Hayden focuses on three major tenets. The first one is radical permission, which is the daily practice of writing yourself permission to take what it is you truly need. He also talks about self-compassion, which is making sure that you are taking care of yourself, filling your own cup, and giving yourself space to learn and grow. Lastly, he's also focused on collective liberation, which focuses on marginalized communities and how we can work together to make sure the community's needs are met. I really hope you enjoy this conversation with Hayden Dawes. Hayden, it's such a pleasure to drop in with you today. So excited about our conversation. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to start, one of the big things that I see with what you're doing, it seems like that you have kind of three tenets, which is, and I'll see if I, confirm with me if this is correct, is radical permission, which I know that we're going to get juicy and deep in, self-compassion, which is like straight up, like right to my heart. And then also collective liberation, which actually I'm really excited because I haven't had a lot of talk about that here in this space. So if you don't mind, can we start with radical permission and see where it goes? And cool, great. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I like to tell the story that back in 2018, I had a friend of mine from high school, and I hadn't even seen her for a while, but she started sharing a haiku a day on Instagram. And I thought to myself, like, well, maybe I should have a daily practice. But like, I don't see myself doing a haiku. Like, I don't want to count those syllables. Like, it's just not going to happen. And so I said, well, what if I wrote myself a permission slip a day? That was a time where everyone was kind of talking about writing a permission slip. And so for 100 days, I wrote a permission slip, and you can go back on my Instagram feed and see they kind of span of like, I give myself permission to like take up space and occupy all the space that's mine and inherently mine. I give myself permission to really just dial it down a notch and to really rest and luxuriate in being in nature or anything like that, like something that was going to be against the grain of what I would typically allow myself in that situation. And so what I found from that is other people in my life, and at this time I didn't have a public Instagram, were like, oh, Hayden, that's really helpful, or that's speaking to me at the moment.
Mm.
And so I was like, well, that's great. And I didn't really think much of it. And then later I was talking to now a friend, but someone that's like a marketing expert. And she was like, Hayden, I really think you could do something with these permission slips. I think they're really cool. I haven't seen anyone else do it. And I said, okay, didn't really think much of it. And then COVID happened. And I was like,
Mm.
wow. And at that time, I was pivoting to being more of a public figure and talking about mental health treatment. I'm also a researcher. So I'm also thinking about how do we make healthcare systems more equitable for people of color and
Mm.
LGBTQIA folks and people that live at the intersection. And so I said, well, I'm already having sort of creating a platform. COVID is happening, having conversations with people in my life as well as my therapist in terms of thinking, wow, the world feels like it's getting smaller. I feel like I have less agency and autonomy during this time. There's these mask mandates, and also you're not supposed to go anywhere. Like I really feel like I have nowhere to kind of walk anymore. Like what
Mm.
happened to the ground? And so I said, well, giving myself permission is like what I need right now. Even with all these very many changes, I can slow down and notice what can I offer myself in this moment. So that summer, I opened it up to the world for 14 days to practice alongside me.
Mm.
And it's been life changing to see how many different people out there are also needing to give themselves permission. So I think of it as a collective practice that you can't short circuit the individual work that needs to happen with it, but we can support each other in doing that work together.
Mm. I love that. It just feel like in my body, I feel like a movement, like whoa, like nice and warm. So that feels so good. What is radical permission? Like, how would you define it?
Yeah, to me, it's like an invitational practice to listen to the inner teacher, the inner guide. I've been a practicing therapist now for quite some time. And one of the things I see with people is most of the time, I would say like 80% of the time, people know what they need for themselves.
Mm.
We could be talking about different like addiction patterns or different relational patterns that are happening. And my job as a therapist is oftentimes to support them. Sure, I might offer them some tools to think about deep breathing exercises or ways to kind of check your own thoughts. But at the end of the day, folks know what they most need. They just need support. So,
Mm.
radical permission is a way to say, you know what, Hayden, take a step back before you get on the phone and get in this back and forth with a friend and say, okay, if I was to give myself permission to do the things that I need, the same way that I would to a friend who's asking for advice, what would that look like? And so I think it's important to write them down. And so I will write it down. I'm like, this is what I need. So for today, my permission slip is today I give myself permission to focus on myself, my needs, and
Mm.
my wants. And that can be feel really different for those of us that are used to being caregivers and doers and providing love and support to everyone else. What happens if I give myself that moment, that pause, and that ability to just say, wow, I can start with me first.
Yeah. Yeah.
So radical permission to me is very much a practice. And I think the thing that sets it apart is that it's not about doing it alone. It's about me modeling my permission slips so that other people will also do it. And by seeing them do it, I have that much more courage the next day to do my own permission slip again. Like I
Mm.
feel very much tethered to this practice. People will send me messages and notes saying, even just watching me go through it, they feel that much braver. And so when I will share on Twitter or Instagram and I see theirs, I'm like, okay, like Hayden, you can slow down and show up. Even if it's the same permission slip day after day after day, it can be intentional and quite powerful.
Mm. Is it safe to say that radical permission is, I mean, I think this is, but something's coming up for me, so I'm kind of framing that. But is it safe to say that radical permission is self-directed rather than, like I told you, one of the main reasons I started this whole kind of thing was because of deep codependent patterns and behaviors that I had experienced, which led me, way down there. But so I could hear something coming up in me saying like, well, what if I don't know what I need? Like, what if I feel like what I need is directed outside of myself? How do I know it's a longer question than like, how do I come back and do that? But I think that might be coming up for some of the audience is that like, I don't know what I need. And this comes from my experience as well, is that like, but like the amount of growth that I've done in that time and being able, we'll talk about that later, but it's just, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're honestly bringing up a great point. And as a researcher, I'm exploring the different ways in which people come to the practice. And so you're right. I know people that like, Hayden, I wouldn't even know where to start with what I need. And so maybe your permission slip is today, I give myself permission to be confused.
Ooh, snap. I like that.
Today, I give myself permission to like, to acknowledge I don't know what I need. Today, I give myself permission to say, I'm willing to get curious about what is it that I might need.
I love that.
It's expressing the willingness to really listen to that voice and to heed what that inner voice is saying. But you're exactly right. It's not about the external world telling you what you are supposed to do. I think a lot of us are used to that. Some of us feel really safe with being told what to do because there's this idea that we can get it right or wrong. But what is it like to, to use a dialectical behavioral term, to listen to what's called your wise mind, that inner deep voice, and hear what it says, the guidance it's giving, and move from that space and to say, I can give myself this permission. I might even argue that no one else can really give it to you, but yet they can't take it away either.
Yeah. Oh, that's so powerful the way that you put that too. Ooh, feels good. I love what you said about being okay just to not have the answer, or like being okay to be confused, or being okay. I mean, yeah, I just, in my growth, I just remember of like, I knew all the shit that I didn't want, but I didn't know how to get what I did want. But and that is also kind of a little bit of a, that's like an anxiety. That's like a dualistic kind of nature inside of me that was, if I don't know if I'm like explaining myself, but like, do you know what I mean? Like I felt kind of pulled apart because like my actions weren't, like self-directed. And so I love, go ahead. Yeah. I just love
being
that.
incongruent from, this is what I'm saying is the direction I want to go in, but I'm feeling like, wow, that's not where I currently am. And what is it like to deeply acknowledge where you are? And I think a permission slip is a tool to do that, to just say, wow, I mean, gosh, I don't even like, it's been astounding when I talk to people and they're like, Hayden, I didn't even know that I could give myself permission to do some of these things. And I'm like, maybe that's where you are. Let's just honor where you are with that.
Right.
You may not be able to, I actually had a permission slip that I didn't think I fully realized the permission slip. I didn't fully manifest it until 2 weeks later.
Yeah. But it must have helped just dropping that in and just like, there it is.
Absolutely. And honestly, it took like a month or so, or maybe it was the 2 weeks, where I was like, I looked at the timeline of when I wrote the permission slip, and then when I like actually made it happen. And then I was like, wow. Like I didn't see the connection at the time because I was so in it.
I love that. So the permission slip, just to kind of clarify and bring it back together, the permission slip is I'm giving like if somebody wanted to practice practice this, I'm sure you have all of that information too on your website and Instagram, which will link up as well. But can you, like, if somebody's like, oh,
walk them through.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So for me in my practice, this is the way I do it. I stop. take a few deep breaths. For me, I like to think about what's on my calendar for the rest of the day.
Mm.
And I think, what is it that I need? Hayden, what can you give yourself right now? What barriers are you experiencing? Is that a barrier to run away from? Or is that a barrier to get around, to go under? And I might say, like, I'm sitting here with you, like, today I'm going to give myself permission. It feels really risky and scary to say this out loud or to write it down, to really show up and be honest. Because that's truly what I need. Because if I think at the end of the day, what don't I want to happen? I don't want to shrink. I don't want to feel like I didn't really express myself. So that might be what I need. Or maybe I had a really, really hard day yesterday and I had some challenges with people that I spoke to and whatever was happening. And I still have junk left over. And so I was like, well, what would be different? What needs to shift towards more positive growth or change? And I might say to myself, today I'm going to give myself permission to be really angry, to be really upset as to what happened yesterday. Or maybe I want to assert myself, like, today give myself permission to have a conversation with that person that said some things to me that didn't sit well with me. Or maybe I'm not ready to do that. Maybe it's like, today I give myself permission to sit with it, to really sit with it, to not feel like I have to run away from it, nor do I have to push it away, but to be with it as it is. And one of the perennial favorites that for those of us that are doers and we just do too much, those of us that are chronically addicted to busyness because it's our way to avoid feeling anything. But my perennial favorite is, today I give myself permission to rest. Yeah. That is the thing that is against the typical kind of conditioning that I'm used to, that I ought to give myself permission to do. That's the way I really think about it. At least I'm thinking about it right now. And it's an evolving practice, y'all. So it might be a little bit different by the time I don't know, you hear about it the next time.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And it just comes to mind about like some stuff that's going on within my relationships right now. One of my promises to myself is that if I get triggered within safe relationships, let's just say, but if I feel myself getting triggered, is to say, hey, I'm triggered. I don't know why, like, and not really have to have an explanation. So that really hits home with me about just, oh man, there's so many kind of little like avenues and stuff like that's now a big value for me. So I feel like it changes. It just really changes when that consistent practice, it changes a lot of things, I feel like. So good.
Yeah, like I give myself permission to not know. I mean, we live in a culture that tells us we're supposed to know everything all the time. And if you don't know, you're failing. I'm in a PhD program, and even in this space, I mean, the most daring thing to do is to say out loud, like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I need help with this. I give myself permission to ask for help. Do I like it? No. Because you're going to experience all those kind of more negative feelings, like the shame, the fear, the disgust, the discomfort. And it's like, I'm going to give myself permission to just really go for it and be in that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So it's a great practice for everyone listening. Can we shift gears to the self-compassion piece?
Yeah, absolutely. I think of
I was going to say, I have a feeling there's a big story around this, but I don't know if that's true or if you'd like to share, but go ahead.
I don't think do I have a big story around self-compassion? Well, I call myself a compassion warrior. And it's totally sort of rooted in the Buddhist bodhisattva practice. I don't know if folks out there are familiar with it, but the idea of a bodhisattva is someone that is using their time on this planet as an opportunity to awaken from their suffering, to use their suffering, every experience, every ounce, every morsel of it, kind of like what you're doing with your podcast and your platform, in order to both awaken themselves and take along others with you. And it's something that I take very seriously. And I think compassion also is an antidote and a balm for the typical ubiquitous suffering that everyone on the planet goes through. Even the worst person on the planet, and I'm saying that in quotes, suffers. Even the best person on the planet suffers. And so if we think of compassion as suffering with people and being in it, like that really does something for me. It gets me out of the bed. It makes my work important, no matter if I'm speaking to you or if I'm waiting for a bus. And also recognizing that if my compassion practice doesn't also involve me, to use a Jack Kornfield quote, then it's incomplete. Like I have to start with me.
Hell yeah, for sure.
Heck yeah.
I get excited when I curse. I get excited.
Hell yeah.
Yes. It's so good. Yes. Something just came to mind about, again, like here on this podcast, sometimes we're very others focused. So what is how would you describe compassion versus empathy? Yeah, I don't know. It just came to me, but like I had something happen to me yesterday, which was very tragic. And I witnessed someone being hit by a car. It was freaking scary and like very traumatic experience. And as, kind of an open hearted person and empath, like I felt it in my body, I had to come home and like do a lot of grounding practices, like take a bath, eat some really nutritious foods. And then I realized, and this is kind of the first time that this has happened to me, like I realized kind of what that was that I was feeling, and I was feeling his hurt and his pain. And, because I kept seeing it in my head and it's just like, oh, it's horrible. Right. But then I realized like, what I really want to do is have compassion for him. Like, I'm so sorry that he's hurting. And I really, really hope that he heals. But that is also not mine, which I feel like empathy, there's something that happens. And I don't quite know. We didn't talk about this before. This is just where it's going.
Yeah.
But do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, I'm sorry that you witnessed that, right? When we see other people suffer, it's bound to impact us, especially for people that are loving and kind. Some people might argue, and I think some neuroscientists might say that you're going to feel that pain in your body as well. So vicarious trauma is real. You witness a traumatic event and you're going to be feeling some of the residual impacts of that, of even just witnessing. Like I'm the type of person that like I have to be in a certain space in order to watch certain action movies, because I can get really like, ooh, this is a lot right now. Like I'm not in the space for it. And so when you're thinking about the connection between empathy and compassion, and let me tell you, there are a lot of researchers, there's a lot of chaplain folks and people that work in the divinity space and therapists that think a lot about compassion and empathy. Compassion is, for me, it's like a bigger umbrella term than empathy. Like empathy is like, to me, like it's much more the tool of compassion. That's the way I view it.
Okay.
Compassion is the willingness to experience the pain that someone else might be experiencing and to share that with them. And empathy, to me, is like the way in which we do it.
Okay.
Sympathy is like othering, it's distancing, like, oh, poor you, or, we say in the South, oh, bless her heart, like, oh, I'm so sorry, that kind of thing, which is like very distancing. Empathy makes me want to lean in. So like where empathy and compassion begin and start and stop, I'm not sure. I'll be completely honest about that. But I do think they're very much linked.
Yeah.
And, now I'm thinking about folks that are willing to wade in the water with people, oftentimes are people that will go into it and bounce back faster from doing it. If you practice that muscle of being empathetic, it's there for you. And you can also, if you're willing to be compassionate towards yourself through that and for the other person, you can bounce back from it.
Yeah, that was kind of that was where I guess my next thought on that. And thank you for sharing that, is that like, again, when you're talking about this compassionate piece about self-compassion, and you talk about this all the time, is fill your cup first and then you can help others. And I think, I guess from I guess the delineation when I was talking about empathy and compassion for me was that I had experienced empathy as taking on everything from everybody else. I know that,
You
no.
saw my eyes got wide,
Yeah.
didn't you?
Yeah. It's like,
Cease and
girl.
desist, honey.
Yeah,
No, ma'am.
exactly.
Not
Yeah,
today.
yeah. But I mean, like, think about it. For me, and again, like, especially in the space where we talk about a lot of the shit about codependency is you know, like for me, again, like yesterday, I was like, is that mine? It's not. And I hurt for him, like I do, but at the same time, like I still need to be whole. And that was very compassionate, I feel like, of myself, like just to sit down and um evaluate that too. So
Well, and think about how compassionate that is for him
yeah.
to say, it's not on me to take on someone else's struggle.
Mm,
He
sit. Yes. Okay. Yes. So good.
he's allowed to have the dignity of being in his own struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm a gay Black man in America, honey.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say to people loud and clear, like, I don't need you to pity me or to be so overcome by whatever ridiculous thing that's happening in the world that you're not upright. How does
Mm,
you being all up in my pool of suffering help either one of us out?
mm. Oh, oh,
And
yeah.
I need you to give me my dignity so I can figure some of this out by myself. But here's the thing, I want you to acknowledge that I'm going through something.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah. I see you, hold you in this experience. Yeah.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think the thing to me is to keep us out of the codependency, because to me, if there's codependency right here and there's complete avoidance, like nothing is happening, and that what we want is the middle, right? The
Mm-hmm.
interdependency. What helps is knowing that there's space for all of it.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
even though you're suffering, guess what? There's still space for me. There's still
Mm-hmm.
space for you, even though you saw something horrible happen to him.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. That either or thing and the black and white thinking, it gets really very insidious sometimes. But yeah. Yeah.
Amen
Thanks
to
for
that.
sharing.
Very
Yeah.
insidious.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Um, let's see. We're talking about self-compassion. I don't know. Do we want to add anything to that until we move on to collective liberation?
You know what I love about the way that you talked about it, though? And I have to do the same thing. It's like, is this mine or is this theirs? And really just slowing down and testing that out. Like, I think what a wonderful practice, honestly. And I'm thinking with my Buddhist brain right now, and the idea of Tonglen practice. Have you heard of Tonglen
Mm-mm.
practice before? So I love this story. So I was listening to a podcast, Krista Tippett's On Being, and they were talking about Pema Chodron's book, When Things Fall Apart. And the Tonglen practice comes out of Buddhist practice, and she describes it in the book. And Krista and her guests were talking about how important the book was to them. And this is when COVID had originally hit. And this particular artist said that he was living in Los Angeles. And at that time, Los Angeles was like the epicenter of the pandemic. And he said his Tonglen practice is when you breathe in someone else's suffering
Mm.
and you breathe out sort of loving and kindness and just warmth to them. And he said when he could hear the ambulances going off, and he said they were going on frequently while he was held up in his apartment,
Mm.
that each and every time he thought about those people on the ambulance and he breathed in their suffering,
Mm.
he breathed out sort of warm, loving thoughts. And for me, when I practice, it reminds me, well, it gets me in contact with, I'll put it this way, that, oh, I'm not the one suffering right now, but this is what I can do. This is my capacity for them right now. I can't I'm not an EMT. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
when I see a lot of suffering on the news, it's like, I can't do anything about it, but I can acknowledge, I can see it, I can breathe it in, and I can just say,
Mm.
warm, loving thoughts and kindness and warmth and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it also comes back to what you're talking about radical permission, which is like, this is tension for me right now, and I'm going to sit with it. My intention, like my radical permission, is to sit with it, or, whatever it is. Yeah. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So good. So good. Collective liberation. I really, really am interested to talk to you about this today, because it's like one of your three biggest focuses, as we talked about. Can we talk a little bit about what is collective
Yeah.
liberation for
Mhm.
you? Go ahead.
So for me, I stand on the shoulders of giants, other teachers that are both living and past, Audre Lorde, Lama Rod Owens, Angel Kyoto Williams, all these Black queer thinkers that are thinking
Mhm.
about how do we bring critical awareness about so many of the injustices that are happening in our world?
Mhm.
What does it mean to be a woman in our world? What does it mean to be someone that's poor? And how can we collectively shift things so that
Mhm.
things are more equitable for all of us? And my research focus is on queer people of color and how can we make mental health systems better for them.
Mhm.
And so I'm thinking a lot and deeply about how does radical permission, how does compassion practice all bring us towards this bigger goal of, y'all, let's make this a better world for the people now and the people coming after us.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that I gather from your work on this is that, and this is something, personally, and be to complete transparent, is something that I'm learning in my journey and my growth, is that, with trauma, with our emotional trauma, whether that be like personally and collectively, or, whatever, is that each experience matters. And that really came to me. I was in a kind of a talk with Resma, and he said something about, like, from the white body perspective, which was, and this really hit home with me, that I hadn't even considered. And this was after, studying trauma and healing my own trauma, was
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, I haven't, like, what if in a past life or something like that, I experienced really, really horrible acts of either, or I could have committed them, or, in a different life. And what if that trauma was sitting with me and was passed down from generation to generation? And that hit me so hard that I don't really know what I'm doing with it, other than just saying, like my experience is also valid.
Mm.
And I don't know, that's kind of what came to me when you said that. Does that make any sense at all?
Oh, absolutely. And I think you're further along than you think you are, because the fact that you're bringing, well, I mean, the fact that you're bringing language to an experience means that it's metabolizing, it's moving through you, right? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what you're getting to, and this is where the collective piece about the liberation, we're not just talking about, excuse me, liberation for Black people. No, it's tied. We are tied. We are inextricably linked. It's our interconnectedness that matters.
Hmm.
And the ways in which we fail to practice that renders us all sick and
Yeah.
traumatized.
Yeah.
It's like, this is, and I think if I can put some more language to it, it's like these people that are like, I'm not going to be in any relationship with anybody, no friends, no partner, no nothing, until I'm completely healed, right?
First of all, I was those people, and I know those people. Yes. I raised my hand, y'all.
Right. And then you have the flip side that's like, I have to be with a therapist at every moment. I have to be with something. I'm so messed up. I'm so broken. And it's
Mm,
like, wait, what? Like so again, how do we find this balance of the self and other, the
right.
self and community? Because I'm going to tell you, some of the most healing experiences I've had has been in group therapy. People calling
Mm.
me out, people calling me in, allowing myself to be loved in a way that, hey, you don't have to give all the time. You're
Mm.
always giving. I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, what? What do you mean? I don't have to give something right now. Like that's what I do. Like I'm the wise one in the room. Like, no,
Yeah,
you
you're
don't
the
have to give
Oprah of your
anything.
friends.
Right. And it's like, no, we don't need all of that right now. Just be you. And it's like, oh, recognizing that sometimes some of those defenses are a guard and they get in the way of me being nourished, truly
Ugh.
nourished for who I am, not what I'm doing. And so healing cannot happen in a vacuum with no relationship. And also, we each have our own individual work to do.
Mm. Yes. Such a big topic. Like, so it feels a little bit massive to me, you know? But I know how important it is, like you're saying, like healing in a group and the relational piece too, is that like, that's actually something I'm experiencing right now in an intimate relationship. And in my, you know, 4 decades on earth, you know, at least in this body, I really, like, again, like we're talking about everything we're talking about, radical permission, self-compassion, and collective liberation. For me also, like, side note, but collective liberation also kind of is um like you're saying, is like, it's like the individual experience leads to that collective, like, wave or movement or change, like generational change, societal change, all the good shit. um
It's like if you were to slow down and think about how many people listening right now have benefited from your inner work.
mm, mm. I can think of some.
Well, it's just it's so, to me it's like it's magical to think that, like, by actualizing my permission slip today of, like, just focusing on my needs, I can take care of so many people outside of myself. But first I'm starting with me, but like
Mhm.
I'm sustaining something and I'm giving people a model that it's okay to eat before anybody
Mm.
else.
Yeah. Would it be safe to say that you can start with that by not having an end goal in mind, other than just being, just allow?
Another prompt sometimes with permission slips I say is allow. Today I allow this to happen.
Mm.
And so I'm right there with you. I you know, a lot my therapist and a lot of people in my life would be like, I need a lot more allowing energy, a lot less striving energy. So trust and
Yes.
believe. I get the
Yes.
allow.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. It's so juicy. I love that. Um, let's see, what did we miss on the collective liberation piece? Go ahead.
I think it's messy.
Yeah.
We're in a time of, and I love that you mentioned Resma Menakem, but we're in a time of deep struggle and awakening and strife, and it is messy. And so in some ways it's kind of like being on a football field or any other kind of team sport. Like sometimes you have to tap out and drink some water, but it's with the commitment and the knowledge that you're going to go back in. And so
Mm.
it's dynamic in the way that, I often say, you cannot have self-care without community care. You cannot have community care without self-care.
Mm.
Like, I need to know that you're taking care of yourself so that when I'm really failing, that you will show up and have my back. And it's so linked. And our individual consciousness raising is linked to the collective consciousness raising.
Mhm. Mhm. And would you say also, like, connection to the larger purpose? Would that be, yeah.
That is the purpose.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
That
Yeah.
is that is the purpose. I mean, for me, it is. What else are we doing on the planet? I mean, those
Mm.
are bigger existential kind of questions,
I mean,
right?
we just dove deep in like 30 or 40 minutes and I love it.
This is where I live.
I know, exactly. Here I go to North Carolina or wherever you are.
I don't even know where you are.
I'm in Phoenix.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was out. I've never been to Arizona. Have I been to Arizona? No, I haven't.
Come
Super
visit.
dry.
Yeah. It's beautiful though. It's getting like really nice, but yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, so good. Oh man. This could go on probably for hours, I feel
Yeah.
like.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a real treat and a great way to end my week. So I
Yes.
thank you so much for that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I love these combos. They touch me really deeply. So um I know that people want to come find you. Well, first of all, what are you doing right now? Are you launching anything? I know you have a lot of shit going on. And then also, where can people find more of your work and follow your compassion journey and all the other good stuff, all the trickle downs
Mm-hmm.
that you're
Ooh, I
working on?
love that. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of this quote that Pema Chodron says. She says, fill yourself with kindness and let that kindness flood the world.
That is it. That's it.
Um, I am at hcdawes.com. Please sign up for my newsletter. You can find out any of my current offerings, both in the community as well as trainings. If there's lots of therapists in the world, I offer trainings from time to time. Also, I'm HC Dawes on Twitter and HC Dawes on Instagram as well. I'm also cool with people adding me on LinkedIn as well. Currently, I'm not offering something, but my wheels are turning. I will be offering something soon.
You're offering your presence. Just your presence is an offering.
Touche. I'm going to allow that to slip by. I'm going to receive that. I'm not going to push it away. See, y'all are seeing me do my work right now.
So good.
Gosh. I didn't think I was going to be attacked like this. Yeah, so those are the places that you can find me. Honestly, the one thing that we didn't talk about is I got myself roped into doing something every week. Not roped into it. I started it, people loved it. But on Tuesdays, we give ourselves permission to be petty. So Petty Tuesday is Tuesday.
Okay.
And I define that as it's not about being mean-spirited. It's about acknowledging that there's more parts of us than this enlightened being that's so empathetic and compassionate to the world. No, we all have a little bit of petty. Some of us got a lot. And what is it like if we just open that box up and say, yeah, I'm petty and I got it real bad?
Also, that's what you're saying is full permission to ask for what you want. And petty for me is like judgment. Like, why am I judging myself for, whatever it is, this Gucci bag? I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like, but
yeah, like it
Go
is,
ahead.
and I think in so many circles, it's like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be perceived this way. But what is it like to just say, I'm being childish. I'm having a gripe about someone I work with. I'm being super petty about it. And I'm going to laugh about it because it's really human.
That is
I don't
awesome.
hate this person. They're just getting on my nerves.
That is awesome. I'm feeling a new podcast segment come out on Tuesdays. 10-minute petty Tuesdays.
As long as you attribute me to it, darling.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. I love this convo again. Thank you so much for coming on. It's such a pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure.